My stepmother said she'd done more mothering in 8 years than my mom did in 10. I answered, respect is earned, and she lost mine. Me, 32 years old. Husband, male, 35 years old. I live in a small Tennessee town where Sunday service still sets the week's rhythm. The high school football schedule is on the fridge beside the Walmart receipts, and folks talk across porches like the street is a front porch forum. My mother died when I was 12. My dad remarried when I was 14. We never blended. More like we stacked paper-thin peace over concrete cracks and pretended the cracks were character. Last week, my dad, his wife, and her parents invited me and my husband to dinner at the steakhouse off the interstate, the one with the brown booths and laminated menus sticky from years of ranch dressing. Her mother nodded at the tiny cross around my neck, my mother's necklace I wear every day, and asked where I got it. I said it was my mom's. She gave it to me before she passed. My stepmother, 43 years old and always careful with appearances, cut in with a smile too bright for the lighting. Well, technically, I'm your mom now, she said. I've done more mothering in 8 years than she did in 10. I felt the whole table hitch, like when a hymn falters because one soprano jumps a measure ahead. I laughed, short, disbelieving, and said, if you think being a mom is about erasing the actual one, then yeah, you've been amazing. My dad's jaw hardened. Her mother gasped the way you do when the pie overbakes and the crust collapses. My husband squeezed my knee under the table like he was anchoring me to the booth. Dad told me to apologize. I said, calmly, no. My stepmother blanked, hurt shifting into accusation. You always make me the villain, she said. And I thought, family isn't supposed to betray blood. I didn't apologize. We paid. We stood up from that booth like it was a witness we were releasing, and I walked out into the parking lot lights knowing something had snapped. But when I got home, a text from my dad waited. Be the bigger person. She's just trying to connect. I stared at the words until they blurred, and the old ache, that small, loyal ache that wants your father to put your memory first, pressed against my ribs. Fine. If I was going to be the bigger person, I was going to be it with a backbone. I told him we'd talk Sunday after church. What I didn't know was that by Sunday, the necklace would be gone. And that would change everything. I woke up Saturday to casseroles, not literal ones, those came later, but to the emotional equivalent, layered, heavy, and pretending to help. My neighbor Luann, 51, the unofficial mayor of our cul-de-sac and bearer of gingham aprons, dropped by with banana bread and a peek around a door look. Honey, she said, folks talk. It was a public restaurant. You all right? It's a small town. Even our shame circulates like bulletins. I told her the truth. I was rattled, but steady. By noon, my Aunt Becky called. Aunt Becky's the one who keeps our family Bible with births and baptisms written in careful cursive. She said something like, your daddy's a good man, but a soft one where new love is concerned. Don't let your mother's memory get washed out like old denim. After that, I did what my therapist from 2 towns over says to do when I'm triggered. I cleaned. I wiped the counters with lemon spray and lined up the salt and pepper and folded dish towels into fourths. It's boring. It's holy. That night, my husband and I attended the youth fundraiser at church. Paper plates, pulled pork, sweet tea, toothacheing sweet. I helped the pastor's wife count cash. She asked, kindly, if I'd be at Sunday service with my dad. Yes, I said, we're talking after. She hummed, a sound between prayer and warning. Sunday morning, I reached for my mother's necklace on the tray by my sink. It wasn't there. I dug under the hair ties, checked the dish by the front door, reopened the jewelry box twice because I didn't trust my eyes. Nothing. I looked in my nightstand, the windowsill, the pocket of the cardigan I wore the night before. Nothing. My stomach dropped, cold and clean. I wore that cross to sleep half the time. I never lost it. I didn't misplace it. I felt something old and fierce rise up. Respect for the dead is the respect you show the living. At my dad's house after service, I walked in and the living room smelled like cinnamon brooms and furniture polish. My stepmother was already pouring coffee into Bless This House mugs. My dad sat rigid in his recliner, knuckles white on the armrests. I said, my necklace is missing. She set down the coffee with that too bright smile. Oh, well, maybe it's for the best. Time to move forward. My dad cleared his throat like a man about to ask race. I looked at her and my voice went low. Did you touch it? Her face flushed. I would never, she said. You're always accusing me. I didn't blink. Would you confront them in front of others? I asked myself, hearing my therapist's voice. Safety first, truth second, timing last. My husband shifted beside me. I said it out loud anyway. Did you take my mother's cross? My stepmother's mother, who had come over for support, hovered in the kitchen doorway, lips pressed thin. The room went quiet, the kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. Then my stepmother laughed a little, high, airy. Why on earth would I take it? Because you're competing with a ghost, I didn't say. Because jealousy turns love into a scoreboard. Because I know you. My dad started his speech. Let's be calm. Let's not make accusations. And I thought, respect is earned, and she lost mine. The coffee grew cold on the table while we stared each other down. A question laid itself on my tongue like a coin on a closed eye. Should I have kept the peace instead of speaking out? I was about to swallow it when my neighbor Luann texted me a photo. And in that photo, caught by the little doorbell camera on her porch, you could see my stepmother's mother, last night after the fundraiser, coming onto my porch while the lights were out. Her silhouette leaned toward my door. Her purse looked heavy. That coin on my tongue turned to fire. I turned my phone so everyone could see. And that's when my stepmother's mother began to tremble. She spoke first because guilt prefers the sound of its own voice. I just wanted to keep it safe, she said, and she looked at me like a teacher begging a student to accept one more round of extra credit. You take it off by the sink. What if it fell down the disposal? My husband's jaw clenched. You were on our porch last night, he said, calm like a winter pasture. No one invited you. My stepmother reached for her mother's hand and turned her face to me, pleading and indignant all at once. You twist everything, she said. I'm trying to build a home where your mother's absence isn't a constant dagger, and you— Stop, I said. My mother's memory is not a dagger. It's a light. Her cross is not yours to hide. My dad rubbed his forehead hard, like maybe he could erase the last 20 years by friction. Please, he said, no more drama. Drama? That word we use when a woman refuses to be quietly disrespected. My stepmother inhaled sharply. I'm 68, she said. I know what's best for families. I looked straight at her. Family isn't supposed to betray blood. Her gaze flickered, and I knew what I knew. She had the necklace. What I didn't know, what I would learn shortly, was that she didn't act alone. Because then my stepmother, as if possessed by earnestness, said, we meant to give it back today after church. We. My father's eyes gave him away. He looked down, then up, then at his hands, that same pattern he used when he told me we were selling Mom's old house. Dad, I said softly, because somehow I still wanted him to step toward me and away from this fog. Did you know? He swallowed. I told them to put it up for now. We need a reset, he said. Your attachment it's keeping you from bonding. Bonding. The word slid across the room like a snake. My stepmother nodded vigorously. Yes, exactly. We just want a fair chance. That's when my Aunt Becky, who had let herself in with her spare key because her sense of timing is Holy Spirit adjacent, called from the doorway. A fair chance at what, honey? Rewriting the family Bible? She walked in, purse banging her hip like a gavel. Where's the cross? My stepmother's mother lifted her handbag like it weighed 100 years and pulled out a zip pouch. The sound of that zipper was louder than a choir. She handed me the cross, and I could feel the heat where it had been held. I saved it, she said again, softer. I held it in my palm, and my fingers shook. Their story didn't just wobble. It collapsed like a plastic table under a wet casserole. They had decided to teach me a lesson about letting go. I looked at my dad. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Do you think I should have trusted my instincts? I asked myself, then said out loud, because my voice had finally found its spine. I will never apologize for loving my mother in front of you, not anymore. Y'all, my Aunt Becky said to the room, if you wanted a reset, you should have started with repentance. The cross lay in my hand, heavier than gold. At the church potluck that afternoon, my stepmother's version of the story started moving through the folding chairs like a draft, murmury, tugging at napkins. She told folks I embarrassed her at dinner, that I was cold and ungrateful, that grief had curdled me into cruelty. I didn't chase the draft. My husband and I served green beans and smiled at children dancing to the youth band's shaky version of I'll Fly Away. But I felt it, the pressure to be nice, to smooth my edges, to reassure everyone that our town's story about good daughters and long-suffering stepmothers still held. Then, while I set out styrofoam cups, a woman named Linda, gray bob, steady eyes, touched my elbow. I lost my mom at 24, she said. My dad remarried a year later. My stepmother was sugary sweet and invasive as kudzu. She kept buying my daughter bikinis and calling them sexy. My kids stopped wanting to visit. I told my dad, I know you're lonely, but I won't sacrifice my daughter's dignity to your second chance. We never healed that. Some wounds don't scab. She took a breath. So I'm telling you, protect your keepsakes, protect your peace. Her words crawled straight under my skin, not to itch, but to anchor. I thought about the general comments I've heard my whole life, that a step-parent should be like a favorite aunt, that love follows respect, not the other way around, that if a woman wants the title mom, she must earn it, and even then, it might not be hers to claim. I thought about another whispered truth at church. Sometimes the men, our men, don't stand up when they should because they're tired and want quiet, and they tell their daughters to be the bigger person. My dad, a quiet man who tucks his shirt into his jeans and says sir to the deacons, had asked a 32-year-old daughter to be more mature than his 43-year-old wife. On the drive home, we stopped at Walmart for paper towels and a lockbox, the cheap kind with a key that my husband will replace with a better one next week. I put the cross in my pocket and stood in the checkout line behind a cart piled high with Capri Suns and a plastic kiddie pool. I wondered, not for the first time, how many daughters had bought lockboxes after casseroles. That evening, Dad texted, "Stop spreading lies about your stepmother." I stared at the words, then took a picture of the doorbell cam still and sent it back. "Stop letting people steal from your child," I wrote. The typing bubble came and went. My phone rang. I didn't answer. My husband grilled chicken in the backyard, and the smell carried over the fence to Luann's house. She hollered over, "You want my secret sauce?" That lifted something inside me. We ate on the porch and watched the sky turn melon and lavender. When I went to bed, I tucked the cross into the new lockbox and set it in the closet. I said a prayer that wasn't pretty. It sounded like, "Lord, I will not be erased." In the morning, I found an envelope slid under our door, my dad's handwriting. "Please apologize. We can start fresh." I held the envelope over the sink and set it, very calmly, to an empty kitchen. I'm not apologizing for insisting on truth. And I remembered the voice of a friend from Bible study, the one who says what others won't. Sometimes peace is just silence sitting on a lie. Midweek, my father asked to meet at Cracker Barrel, a place so drenched in nostalgia you can't tell if it's comforting you or selling you comfort by the plate. He was already seated, a checkerboard between us. He moved a piece forward and said, joking, "King me." Then he folded his hands. "I don't want this," he said. "I am caught between two women who won't yield." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. Two women who won't yield? Or one woman who finally won't swallow her dignity to protect his convenience? "Dad," I said gently, "if you had died instead of Mom, and she remarried, would it be okay for the new man to tell me to call him Dad and pretend you never existed?" He blinked, then did that look down, look up thing. "It's different," he said. "How?" I asked. He had no answer, only a helpless shrug. "She feels threatened by your mother's memory," he said. "Then she needs to work that out without stealing from me," I replied. "I won't worship her insecurity." He said he wanted rules. "No wearing the necklace to family dinners," he offered. "It's provocative." I said, "No. The rule is, no touching my property, No insulting my mother, and no expecting me to transfer love like direct deposit. He flinched. The waitress poured more coffee we didn't drink. An old man at the next table eyed the peg game on his table like it held answers. Your stepmother thought if you put the necklace away, he said softly, maybe you'd stop comparing. This was the part nobody says, but it's the part that matters. Metrics make insecure people feel safe. Comparisons are bullets when you want to be the only name on the scoreboard. I leaned in. Dad, comparison is the weapon of the jealous, I said. I'm not competing, I'm remembering. He sighed and changed tactics. If you would just apologize for embarrassing her at dinner, he said, we could move on. My throat tightened. Should I have apologized, even if I wasn't wrong? I asked aloud, letting him sit with the shape of that question. He shifted. Maybe not wrong, he conceded, but harsh. I shook my head. Truth feels harsh when you're used to being flattered. He fingered his napkin. I just want peace. There it was, peace again. Real peace has truth in it, I said. The kind of peace you're asking for is just quiet from me. He looked so small in that booth, a man who wanted his second chance to be smooth and his first child to be silent. For a breath, I wanted to fold. I saw little girl me at school concerts, scanning the crowd for mom, then dad, then landing on the empty chair between the two. I wanted to give him something easy. Instead, I slid a small index card across the table, because I am my mother's daughter, and she believed in writing things down. 1. You will not ask me to pretend my mother never existed. 2. You will never again let anyone touch my mother's belongings. 3. You will not call me cruel for saying no to erasure. He read them like they were vows. He folded the card and put it in his pocket. We'll see, he said. Small. We'll see. The softest refusal. When I stood to leave, he looked up and said, almost pleading, Sunday's your stepmother's chili cook-off. Come, please. I felt a laugh rise. Chili, really? But I saw the little boy in him, the one who always wants everyone to eat around one table. We'll come, I said, and I'll wear the cross. Sunday arrived hot and high, and the church parking lot smelled like cumin and cornbread. The chili cook-off was a whole production. Tents, bunting, the deacon with a clipboard looking very official. My stepmother had a crock pot under a sign that read, Mama's Best. I stared at that word, Mama, and felt the sting of how easily titles are claimed when you print them on cardstock. My husband and I made a slow loop, shaking hands, answering, how are y'all, with, we're all right, the most southern untruth. Luann waved us over and pressed a spoon of her white chicken chili into my hand. Best in show every other year, she whispered. She'll be mad if I win again. She nodded toward my stepmother's tent. Bless her heart. And we both knew what bless her heart means when you say it soft and long. It means I see what she's doing and I won't pretend it's pretty. While the judges conferred, my dad gathered the family in a little cluster under the oak where the kids climb after service. He cleared his throat. We're going to be a family, he said, which is the kind of declaration people make when they're about to request a sacrifice. My stepmother stepped forward. I want to apologize, she said, voice amplified like a microphone found her. I braced. I'm sorry, you felt disrespected, she said. There it was, the apology that puts all the blame on the feeling, not the act. I love you. I want us to move forward. I'm asking you to stop wearing the cross to family events for a season, to help us all reset. We'll put Mom's things in a trunk, safe, and we'll... No, I said, before the sentence finished sucking the air out of the oak's shade. People turned. A hush traveled like a shiver through branches. You stole from me, I continued. You did it with my father's knowledge. You called erasure connection and theft safety. I will not hide my mother to make you comfortable. My voice didn't rise, but it filled the space like a hymn that knows its own notes. Heads tilted. The youth pastor's wife nodded almost imperceptibly, a rabbit quiet sign of solidarity. My stepmother's mouth tightened. You're humiliating me in front of the whole church, she said. There it was, that word again, humiliating, when the truth simply refuses to be wrapped in bows. "I'm telling the truth in front of the whole church," I said. "If you don't want our church to hear about your actions, change your actions." My dad stepped between us. "Enough," he snapped, sharp as a snapping turtle. "You are making this worse." I looked past him to the tent with Mama's best and thought, for one atomic second, that I could make a scene that would soak this ground for years. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered to the little girl inside me who still wanted a father, not a referee. "Would you defend your mom even if Dad gets angry?" I heard my own words and knew the answer was yes. My hand went to the cross at my throat. "I love you," I told my dad, clear. But love isn't obedience to wrong. An older woman I didn't know, hair white as meringue, drifted near and said, not quite to anyone, "You don't take a daughter's mother from her twice." The judges announced the winners. Luann took second. My stepmother didn't place. Her smile froze like a photograph you don't frame. We went home and I made a pot of tea. The cross lay warm on my chest, an anchor under Sunday lace. A few days later, my stepmother tried new tactics. She left a gift bag on my porch with a note, "A fresh start." Inside was a delicate gold chain, expensive and empty, as if I might hang my forgiveness on it. She also posted on Facebook a picture of her stirring soup with the caption, "Being mom is the greatest gift," and tagged my dad and his parents and me. The comments were a syrup of hearts and praise hands. I didn't respond. Silence is sometimes offense. But then she messaged me, "You embarrassed me. Should I have to keep being the villain forever?" I breathed. I typed slowly. "Stop assigning yourself roles," I wrote. "Do right. Then you won't need to audition for forgiveness." She didn't reply. That night, my father called again. "She's crying," he said. "She says you're punishing her." I walked into my closet and touched the lockbox with 3 fingers, like it was a mezuzah. "I'm protecting myself," I said. "She took something sacred. You helped. There are consequences." He sighed, exasperated. "You've always been stubborn." He meant I don't bend the way he wants, and I don't apologize to keep his house quiet. "Would you forgive her if she tried to erase your mom's memory?" The question sounded like an echo of every small-town woman who has ever stood her ground at a kitchen sink. He didn't answer. At work, I confided in my coworker, a mother of 4 who says the newborn stage is easy compared to teenagers and who understands that love isn't scorekeeping. She said, "You don't get to demand the word mom. Your kids give it to you." I wrote that down. "Demanding love is like demanding rain," she continued. "You can water a garden, but you can't command clouds." That weekend, my Aunt Becky invited us to a family barbecue. Music, kids with bubbles, the kind of community where someone always knows which folding chairs squeak. She brought out the family Bible and set it on the picnic table like a court record. She flipped to the page with my mother's name and dates. "I want to say this out loud with witnesses," she said. "No one will blot out her memory." We all said amen, not loud, but together. I saw my stepmother across the yard, lips tight, hands busy wiping a non-existent spill. My father stood beside her, small again. A few days later, my stepmother tried new tactics. She left a gift bag on my porch with a note, "A fresh start." Inside was a delicate gold chain, expensive and empty, as if I might hang my forgiveness on it. She also posted on Facebook a picture of her stirring soup with the caption, "Being mom is the greatest gift," and tagged my dad and his parents and me. The comments were a syrup of hearts and praise hands. I didn't respond. Silence sometimes offense. But then she messaged me, "You embarrassed me. Should I have to keep being the villain forever?" I breathed. I typed slowly. "Stop assigning yourself roles," I wrote. "Do right. Then you won't need to audition for forgiveness." She didn't reply. That night, my father called again. "She's crying," he said. "She says you're punishing her." I walked into my closet and touched the lockbox with 3 fingers, like it was a mezuzah. "I'm protecting myself," I said. "She took something sacred. You helped. There are consequences."
He sighed, exasperated. "You've always been stubborn." He meant I don't bend the way he wants, and I don't apologize to keep his house quiet. Would you forgive her if she tried to erase your mom's memory? The question sounded like an echo of every small-town woman who has ever stood her ground at a kitchen sink. He didn't answer. At work, I confided in my coworker, a mother of 4 who says the newborn stage is easy compared to teenagers and who understands that love isn't scorekeeping. She said, "You don't get to demand the word mom. Your kids give it to you." I wrote that down. "Demanding love is like demanding rain," she continued. "You can water a garden, but you can't command clouds." That weekend, my Aunt Becky invited us to a family barbecue. Music, kids with bubbles, the kind of community where someone always knows which folding chairs squeak. She brought out the family Bible and set it on the picnic table like a court record. She flipped to the page with my mother's name and dates. "I want to say this out loud with witnesses," she said. "No one will blot out her memory." We all said amen, not loud, but together. I saw my stepmother across the yard, lips tight, hands busy wiping a non-existent spill. My father stood beside her, small again.
I didn't go over. I stayed with my people. I ate baked beans and laughed at my cousin's joke and let Luann refill my tea. In the evening, the little kids caught lightning bugs in mason jars and let them go again. I watched the light on and off, like truth does when it flickers through a family trying to hide it. When we left, my dad touched my arm. "She wants another talk," he said, weary. "Maybe," I said. "That next time there will be a third party, a pastor or a counselor. I will not be cornered again." He didn't like that. Control rarely likes a witness, but he nodded. Should a stepmother earn respect instead of demanding it? I asked the night sky as we walked to the car. Yes, she should. And if she can't, the house can still be peaceful, just without proximity. The next week, the pastor asked if I'd be willing to come in with my dad and stepmother for a conversation. I said yes, with one condition. The conversation would start with the truth as a fact, not a debate. They had taken the necklace. They had decided to reset me by hiding my mother. We gathered in his office, cross on the wall, a picture of last year's baptism in a silver frame, the faint smell of coffee and lemon cleaner. My stepmother wore a soft cardigan and a look she saves for prayer circles, eyes wide, the posture of humility that tries to look photogenic. The pastor opened with prayer, old school and simple. Then he said, "Tell me what happened, each of you without adjectives and without blame words." My father went first. He said, "My daughter loves her mother. My wife feels threatened by that. I wanted peace. I made a bad call." It was the closest to repentance I'd heard, and it moved something that had grown crusty in me. My stepmother said, "I overstepped." Then she raised her chin. "But I'm just asking for space to be mom." The pastor looked at her, kind but frank. "You are asking for a place that doesn't belong to you." She flinched. He continued, "She could call you friend, ally, even blessing if you earned it. But mom is not a vacancy you can fill by decree." She began to cry. "I have given 8 years," she said. "I have cooked, driven, sat through school concerts." Her voice sharpened. "I deserve the title." The pastor didn't blink. "Love is not wages, and mom is not a paycheck," he said. "You cannot collect what wasn't promised." Silence filled the room like water. She whispered, "Then what is my role?" The question sounded genuine for once. I said, "Be who you really are. My father's wife. A woman I might one day respect if you stop trying to compete with a ghost and start showing me you can stand beside one." She dusted tears off her cheeks like crumbs. "And the necklace?" she asked. I touched the cross at my throat. "My mother's. My decision. Off limits." The pastor raised an eyebrow at my father. "And you?" My dad exhaled. "I'm sorry," he said to me. "I shouldn't have asked you to apologize. I shouldn't have asked you to hide her." It wasn't perfect, but it landed. I nodded. "Thank you." I've learned to take small mercies without mistaking them for miracles. We drew a boundary plan. Yes, an actual list, because people who steal jewelry often also steal clarity. 1. No touching my property. 2. No comments comparing her mothering to my mother's. 3. Any conflict happens with a third party present. The pastor typed it out and emailed it to all of us, pastoral firmness dressed up like administrative neatness. We stood to leave. My stepmother, eyes red, said, "Will you ever call me Mom?" It was a childlike question from a woman who wanted a crown. "No," I said gently, "but I could call you by your name with warmth someday." She winced, but she nodded. That someday is a door I can close if she tries to pry it open with entitlement again. In the parking lot, my dad hugged me. Awkward, one-armed, but real. "Thank you," he said, "for coming." We parted. I stood by my car and looked at the cross. The sun caught it, and I had the oddest thought. Grief grows up with you if you let it. It stops being a screaming baby and becomes a quiet, steady adult, a companion you don't have to apologize for bringing to dinner. On the drive home, the questions came back, not as doubts, but as invitations. Should I have kept the peace instead of speaking out? Would you defend your mom even if Dad gets angry? Should I have apologized even if I wasn't wrong? Do you think I should have trusted my instincts? Should a stepmother earn respect instead of demanding it? I carried them like a litany, not because I needed answers, but because I wanted the women listening, sisters, friends, church ladies with big purses and bigger hearts, to recognize their own questions in mine and pick a braver answer next time. Thanksgiving came faster than anyone expected, the way holidays do, riding on the back of early sunsets. We hosted this year, partly to assert that our home is our home, and partly because my husband's fried turkey has converted more than one skeptic. I set the table with Mama's blue willow plates. I ironed the napkins like repentance, then laughed at myself and stopped ironing because perfectionism is just shame wearing pearls. I polished the cross and fastened it at my throat. My stepmother arrived with sweet potato casserole, the marshmallow kind you can't say no to without causing a scene. She stood in my doorway and looked around at the photos, my mother on the mantel, her smile like a light from a far room. My stepmother didn't comment. That was the first good sign. My dad followed with a pecan pie from the roadside stand. He handed it to me and said, simply, "This looks like your mother would have loved it." That was the second good sign. Dinner was loud and good. The kids fought over the wishbone. Luann told a story about her cousin's dog swallowing a whole biscuit. My Aunt Becky said grace with the authority of someone who could also direct traffic with the same tone. We ate and laughed, and for long stretches, I forgot to be careful. After pie, while the football game went lopsided in the background, my stepmother asked if she could help wash dishes. I said yes, but I watched her hands like a hawk watches a field. We stood at the sink. She reached for a plate and paused. "I want to try to do this right," she said. The words were small, not performative. "I don't know how," she admitted, "but I can stop doing it wrong." I nodded. That's something. She asked me what my mother used to cook for Thanksgiving. I told her. Cornbread dressing heavy on sage, pecan pie with a whisper of bourbon. She listened. That was the third good sign. After dessert, my dad asked if he could say a few words. The room quieted. "I didn't protect my daughter's memories," he said. "I made choices that hurt her. I am sorry. I want to love my wife without asking my child to disappear." He looked at me, and I saw the man who taught me to ride a bike on the gravel road by the creek, jogging behind me with one hand on the seat. I nodded, a little tear-stupid, and then Luann clapped, that brave neighbor clap that tells everyone it's safe to breathe. The room followed. My stepmother didn't make a speech. She didn't need to. Later, as she put on her coat, she glanced at the cross and didn't flinch. Progress is small and honest like that. When everyone left, the house was full of dishes and quiet and the particular warmth of people who tried, imperfectly, to be better. My husband poured us hot cider.
We stood at the sink and listened to the last of the football fuss. I touched the cross and felt the steadiness of the woman who gave it to me, her dignity, her stubborn compassion, her insistence that truth is not cruelty. So listen, sisters and friends and church ladies who whisper prayers into dishwater, I will not tell you it all tied up with a bow. It didn't. It never does. My stepmother is still herself. My dad is still learning the difference between peace and silence. But something shifted. A small respect entered the room and decided to stay. Family isn't supposed to betray blood. Respect is earned, and she lost mine. Those lines still live in me, but so does this one. Boundaries are love with a backbone. And if you're wondering whether I was cruel to answer her in public, whether I should have kept the cross tucked under my collar, whether I should have apologized for speaking plainly in a town that prefers ladies to speak in lace, I will say this and only this, because it is the truest thing I learned this year. I thought family meant loyalty, but I was wrong.